Hello, my name is DoctorDT, and this is my run of Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide for submission to Summer Games Done Quick 2022. So Worlds Collide is an open-world randomizer for Final Fantasy VI. It randomizes character locations and abilities, espers, bosses, treasures, shops, and more. The goal of the game, in place of the 20-hour story of the vanilla JRPG with love and loss and saving the world and heroism and all of that, instead you start with a small group of characters in an airship, and you travel around the two worlds, performing checks, recruiting new characters, finding espers, until you meet the conditions necessary to face Kefka and defeat him in Kefka's tower. So this particular version of it is based on the standard race settings. If you go to ff6wc.com, you can begin playing this yourself. So the standard race settings, modified slightly for SGDQ. So we will begin with 3 characters. The goal is to collect 8 characters, 10 espers. And also, for SGDQ, we added in a incentive where we also have to either save Sid or let him die by feeding him fish. And that incentive will be decided by donations at SGDQ. We're submitting this for a 4-person race. Worlds Collide is a very dynamic and exciting racing game because of its branching logic, which leads people to take very different paths, and yet we often see that people meet up together at the end, and it becomes a nail-biter. So it looks like I'm about to get started here, and I'll walk you through the game as we go. Alright, so here we go. So the first thing we do is we start on the airship. I'm going to check who my characters are. It looks like we have Mog, Locke, and Realm. I'm also going to check what their abilities are. It looks like it's Runic, Rage, and Health. So the abilities are all abilities of characters in Final Fantasy VI, but they're randomized to different characters. So I mentioned that each of the characters opens up different checks in the world, and we're going to start this run off by going straight to Narshi in the World of Ruin, and we're going to check one of Locke's checks. So because Locke is a treasure hunter, he can pick the locks on these doors, and having him in the party lets us get into the Narsh weapon shop. In the Narsh weapon shop, in the vanilla game, this is where we get the Ragnarok Esper, and the old man gives us a choice. Here, this could have been an Esper, but instead it is a top-tier item. We had the choice between the Ragnarok Sword and a Thunder Shield, and we took the Ragnarok Sword because building up your damage is very important in this game. You start off at level 3, and as you go, the level of the enemies scales with the number of cursed checks that you do. So here, I walked into the old man's house and picked up the Cursed Shield. He tells you how many battles it will take. That number is also randomized. Here it was 19 battles. If you have the shield equipped for 19 battles, then it would break the curse and turn into the Paladin Shield. Unfortunately, that's a pretty large number of battles, so we're not going to do that in this particular run. So here I'm doing a little bit of looting. The beginning of Worlds Collide often involves going around the world to locations that have a lot of chests and opening those chests up to see if there's anything useful inside of them. So the Narsh teaching house here has 3 chests. I'm going to do a little bit of initial equipping here. I'm putting the Ice Shield on Realm because the Ice Shield and all the Elemental Shields teach you Tier 2 magic, and Realm is a very good magic user in this game. She starts with the highest default magic stat. So I'm checking this monster in a box. The monster in a boxes are also shuffled. I'm not sure exactly how many of them there are, but they're shuffled amongst each other, and some of them have very good loot that you might want to pick up. So here I'm looking through Locke's Rage menu. Rages are a special ability, a type of blue magic in Final Fantasy VI, where you get to imitate a monster. And it turned out here in this run, I had the Tyrannosaur Rage. And the Tyrannosaur Rage allows you to cast Meteo. Meteo is a very good spell. It has a high damage to it. It's non-elemental. It has a relatively low hit rate, so you see it only hit 3 of the 4, but still, it's good damage for the beginning of the game. So we finished this battle, we picked up a couple of levels. So let's talk about leveling and progression in this game. So at the beginning of the game, all of your characters start at level 3. And the enemies all start... well, the enemy levels all follow what we call progression. So in standard race flags, progression scales with 2 times the number of checks that you do. So checks is number of characters you have, number of espers that you've found, and the number of dead checks that you get as well, like high-tier items from checks that could have been espers. So right now I've done, I have 3 characters and I've done 1 check, so that means that the enemies are at level 8. So at the beginning, you want to generally build yourself up, get some damage, get ahead of scaling. I'm selling some things and buying some earrings here. Earrings are a very good relic. They give you each one that you put on gives you a flat 25% boost on your magic damage, whether that is casting magic or whether that is like magical skill through blitz or sword tech or shock or another one of the character skills. So right now we are looting South Figaro. South Figaro is a pretty common loot location for Worlds Collide. This is because it has a whole bunch of these outdoor chests and barrels that you've seen me picking up. It also has a number of shops that you can check, looking for good equipment, good shields, good relics. Here, I've gone to the item shop and I'm picking up some consumable items, which are a useful thing to have throughout the game, for healing or for, especially for curing status ailments. It's one of the easiest ways to get rid of status ailments, and that can be relevant all the way into the end game. So, so as I mentioned, the beginning of the game usually involves going around the world, collecting loot, trying to put together a strategy in terms of damage, a solution in terms of damage for beating the rest of the seed. Often in the beginning of the game, you also need to take a couple of leveling battles in order to get yourself up above the scaling of the enemies. So right now the enemies are level 8. After taking that monster in a box, my characters are probably level 5 or 6, so I'm probably going to want to take a few leveling battles at some point. Fortunately, I have an early damage solution using the Tyrannosaur Rage. You may have noticed that I had about 20 rages that Locke came with. Like everything else in Worlds Collide, that number is configurable. For this race, we put the rage number up around 20 to 30, I believe, starting rages. Every time that we fight a monster, we will also learn its rage. But fortunately, I had a good starting one that I can work with. In terms of the other skills that we started with, I believe Mog had Runic. Runic is a skill that's not commonly used in the vanilla game after the tutorial battle at the beginning with Celes and Locke fighting the tunnel armor. What Runic does is it allows Celes in the vanilla game, or whoever has it in Worlds Collide, to absorb any cast magic. And in the vanilla game, that's not commonly used because a lot of the time your own damage is coming from casting magic, and she will absorb your magic if you cast it as well. So you don't often see it in just casual runs or speed runs of Final Fantasy VI. But it can be very useful in Worlds Collide, especially in cases where you're running into bosses that cast a lot of magic, especially when you have non-magical damage. So now I went up to the terminal and came back to the world of Balance, flying around got a little bit lost on the airship there, but what I'm doing now is I'm coming to South Figaro in the world of Balance. South Figaro, pretty uniquely, has different loot in the world of Balance and the world of Ruin. So coming and picking up the loot in the world of Balance is also a pretty useful thing to do at the beginning of the run. I'm also checking out the shops again, selling some of the things that I picked up in the rich man's basement in South Figaro World of Ruin. You might have seen me selling Gratis and a ribbon there. Both of those are worth a lot of money. For people who are familiar with Final Fantasy, selling that ribbon might seem like a surprising thing, but ribbons are kind of a niche use thing here, right? They don't boost up your damage. They prevent all status ailments, which is good in some cases. If I was trying to break the curse on the cursed shield, that ribbon would have been very useful. But as it is, for me, it's just a way to build up my money and use it to buy useful things. More money is very good in Worlds Collide. So I'm coming through and checking this item shop here. It's not too... Different racers would do things differently. They'll have different looting routes at the beginning. So here, you'll note I'm picking up some Phoenix Downs and potions. Those are very important for staying alive. Picking up a few Super Balls. Super Balls are a meme item in the original game. They're very useful for getting started in Worlds Collide. It's a consumable item that does essentially random damage between, I think as low as like 128 and as high as 8,000 damage on a single target. So at the beginning of the game, when you don't have much damage, it can be a really clutch way to get through some challenging bosses. So I've come here to the Returner's Hideout. This is another common early game looting spot. There's, I think, 7 chests here. Picking up a Hero Ring. Hero Ring is a very good relic in this game. Hero Ring it combines an earring, plus 25% magic damage, with an Atlas Armlet, plus 25% physical damage. So, especially if you're using a character that does both of those, someone who's swinging a sword, for example, like the Ragnarok, that does physical damage and can proc Flare, that can be a really good boost for them. Or someone who's doing, like, blitzes that are a combination of physical and magic damage. Ooh, picked up a Genji Glove here. Genji Glove can be a very clutch item. It lets you wield 2 swords at once. So if you find 2 good swords, Genji Glove is a really good thing to have. I'm grabbing some Warp Stones here. Warp Stones are good for speed when you get to the end of some checks that would require you to walk out. Otherwise, you can instead crack a Warp Stone and warp immediately back to the world map. So after doing that, I'm going to do a little bit of grinding here at the 10-minute mark. So I've come to this cave south of Figaro. I'm going to do a little bit of equipping with that gear that I found, testing to see if Mog can hold the Ragnarok, because if Locke is going to be doing... if Locke's going to be doing Tyrannosaur Rage, then there's no reason for him to have the Ragnarok as well, and that gives Mog something to do here. So I'm giving Locke that Hero Ring, pairs well with his Rages. The Rages are chance of Meteo and chance of just a physical strike. Also Hero Ring on Mog here, and a Gauntlet. That Gauntlet lets Mog hold the Rag with 2 hands, which increases his attack power very strongly. And Earrings on Realm. As I mentioned, Realm is going to be my main caster, because she has a very good magic stat at the beginning. So this cave is a great place to do some early grinding. The reason for that is that this cave has a healing spring right in it, so you don't have to worry about keeping yourself alive between multiple battles. You don't have to worry about potioning up. You don't have to worry about MP. You can just run up to the healing spring and get topped off. So Realm already learned Ice 2 there. That's very good for her. It gives her something to do. Looks like I'm already up at level 8. I'm going to take a couple more grind fights here. It's nice to get comfortably ahead of scaling, so that it makes the bosses a little bit easier, and if you do it at the beginning and you can stay ahead of scaling, it just makes the whole thing go a lot smoother. So here I am, fighting these no-rabbits. I think I've forgotten here. So this is a very complex game. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think I've forgotten here that no-rabbits don't actually give you experience. So I'll remember that for next time. I'm putting that... I'm going to put that Ice Shield onto Mog so that he can learn Ice 2 as well. Useful for all of your characters to have a couple of options of things to do. So while I keep taking a few grind fights here... ooh, I found Brontours. Brontours are a late-game enemy. I believe they're in Kefka's tower. So if I can take these guys down, and it looks like I'll be able to, my armor's quite good here, then they should give me a really nice bunch of experience for this. So I mentioned that we have the SID incentive for this. So the way that we implemented that is through the objective system in Worlds Collide. So this is a new thing with version 1.0. This was released by our developer Atmatech back in January. It's pretty new. He made the whole thing open source, so again, if you go to ff6wc.com, you can take a look at what's going on there. Okay, I'm putting my Moogle Charm back on, healing up one more time, and then I'm going to go start doing some checks. So anyway, with the objective system, the check for unlocking Final Kefka is now implemented as an objective, which means that you can make anything you want. Again, a little lost on the airship here. You can make anything you want an objective. So traditionally, and for the standard race flags, it's some number of characters, some number of espers, potentially some number of dragons fought and killed. But if you wanted to, for example, you could have your objective for unlocking Kefka to be recruiting 2 specific characters, or you could have it be... Oh yeah, so I'm going back through this cave. This activates another one of Locke's checks, which is the tunnel armor spot. And the tunnel armor spot, our first real boss of the game, is Doom. Doom is one of the statues in Kefka's tower. You'd think this would be a pretty dangerous fight, but I think I've got the right gear for it. Medio should be able to help with this. Doom absorbs ice, so I'm going to be using Realm to keep me alive here. Health is useful in terms of giving you a cure, full party cure right out of the box. I believe it's just Cure 2. Sometimes, because the magic is randomized, and we haven't talked about espers yet, but the magic that espers teach you is randomized. And because the magic is randomized, you can easily find yourself in a seed where you just don't learn any cure spells. I'm going to note that this was a major troll moment in this run right here. So I cast Pearl using the Pearl Rod. Breaking a Rod gives you a full strength, no defense cast of that spell. But Doom managed to throw a force field that had a 1 in 8 chance of making Pearl Magic ineffective, and lo and behold, it made Pearl Magic ineffective. Fortunately, I had my backup strat of Super Balls. Those Super Balls gave me a 6400 hit, which for this level 8 Doom is enough to make him go down. So, goodbye, Doom. So that's the first of the 3 statue bosses. We may see the others, and we may not. For a sense of scale... Oh, and our reward for taking down that lock check is Sabin. Sabin is a very good person to find early on in Worlds Collide. And the reason for that is that Sabin has 5 checks, which is tied for highest. The highest number of checks is Terra and Sabin, each of whom have 5. And I'm going to run over here and immediately do some of Sabin's checks. I'm looking for the Imperial Camp. I'm a little bit too far to the north of it. There it is. It's at the desert. So I'm landing here. I'm probably going to do a safety save, equip Sabin, and then move on to do the check. Imperial Camp is a nice early check because it doesn't have a boss. It does have 4 fixed encounters, and so the fixed encounters are usually a bit less dangerous than the bosses are. You can run into some pretty bad ones, but you can also run away from fixed encounters with these flags. We have 100% run rate turned on for the fixed encounters here. So here's our favorite villain, Kefka, meandering away. We're going to chase him around a bit. And then he's going to pansy out, and we'll fight some of his minions. But before we do that, we're going to open a few more chests, see what's in this monster in a box. And this monster in a box is everybody's favorite Final Fantasy VI snail, Presenter. We're not going to fight Presenter. He doesn't give you any experience. He does give you a Dragon Claw, but we don't really need a Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is an okay weapon, but it's not even the best claw. So we're going to take a couple of these checks. You can't get back in here after you do Imperial Camp, so we got to do it now. And let's see what the fixed encounters have for us. We've got Tuskers. Tuskers aren't that dangerous, but again, I believe they do absorb ice, so instead of casting Ice 2 on them, we're gonna try and Tyrannosaur and hit them with my Ragnarok. You can do pretty well with enemies just kind of fighting them. You don't need to get fancy with it. You can save yourself a bunch of animation time. Alright, so now we go into this gauntlet of 3 fights. We know from the animation that we are not going to get a character here. So we will get either an esper or we will get a top tier item, which we affectionately refer to as a dead check when that happens. You don't always mind seeing a dead check, especially if it's a good item like that Ragnarok I picked up at the beginning. That's going to be useful all game. Taking down this steroidite, getting a good chunk of experience. So that's the first of 3. Anyway, so in this particular version of the seeds, I mentioned that this particular version of the flags for SGDQ, our unlock for Kefka's Tower has an extra requirement in the objective, which is that in addition to finding 8 characters and 10 espers, we also need to either save Sid by feeding him healthy fish, or let Sid die by feeding him unhealthy fish and or waiting. And this will be our incentive for the game. So people will donate in order to kill the Sid or save the Sid, and the runners, we will do whichever they decide. One added twist is that we added on another objective, which is that if Sid dies, you get his sword. So finishing these 3 checks gave us the Magicite unicorn, so that's our first esper. So anyway, letting Sid die in this flag set will give us an Illumina, the best sword in the game. All of the runners will get it if if SGDQ decides that we're going to get that. Okay, so we got our first esper. We're going to go on to our second check. So let's talk about espers. I'm going to see what this esper teaches us. It teaches us Ice 3. This particular esper did not give us a level up bonus, but in general, the espers do 3 things. They teach you magic. So this one is teaching us Ice 3, as well as a few other spells. I didn't see what they were exactly. Ice 3 is very good. The level 3 spells are very useful. And we're going to pick up Terra for the Phantom Train check. Terra is a very good character in Worlds Collide, both for the checks that she gives you and also for the just her stats. She has a good magic power 39. That's among the highest. Magic is often one of your best bets here. Going to check this ghost. The second ghost always is a shop here, so I can pick up a few more protection items here, like some softs. I didn't get those before. Anyway, as you go through the game, you only can have 4 characters in your party, so for the most part, people will build their game around 4, or even in some cases 3 main characters. The reason for that is that when you go into Kefka's Tower, you have to split your party. You have to field 3 parties on 3 different paths in Kefka's Tower. And so when you get to that point, even if you've been relying on people supporting each other, if you've been relying on one person keeping you healthy and another person doing damage, that's not going to work for you anymore, and you have to be able to handle at least one boss with all 3 of those parties. So as we go through, we're going to try and choose to keep characters that we think are the most promising for this seed. We're going to put them in our party and level them up. So Terra with Sword Tech is very good. With her high magic power, we'll probably turn her into a caster. She also has pretty decent physical damage, and Sword Tech has good physical and magic attacks, including non-elemental ones, which can be very important. If all of your damage is elemental, and you run into a boss that absorbs that element, or a boss that is immune to that element, then you are in trouble. So it's good to have some non-elemental options for taking care of those bosses. So Phantom Train is a Sabin check. It's one of his 5 checks. This one is pretty unique in that you get your you get your reward at the beginning, and then, but you have to beat the train in order to escape. You can't warp out of here. So I'm going to pick up these 4 chests, one of which is another monster in a box, and let's see what it is. Ah, it's aloe vera. So I am going to kill Aloe Vera, mostly because you can do it just by dropping a Revivify on him. One of the nice features of many Final Fantasy games is if you meet undead enemies, you can throw holy water on them, or in this translation, Revivify, and it just kills them. So Aloe Vera gave us Tiger Fangs. Tiger Fangs is an okay stat stick. It's the best claws. Has pretty decent magic boost, actually. I'm going to take a safety save here. This is because I might still run into some pretty nasty character, and as I mentioned, you do have to beat this boss in order to escape the train. But I am pretty far ahead of scaling here. You might have seen most of my characters are level 18, whereas the scaling is just at level 12, I think. So, running on the tracks, we have the Tentacles. Tentacles can be, it can be an awkward fight. That Meteo is going to be very helpful, hitting all of the targets. All 4 of the tentacles absorb something. I often forget which is which. Let's see if I remember this time. Casting Ice on lower left. Terra's going to try out Quadra Slam, which is a sword tech. See how good her damage is here. Just under 200, so that's a total of 800 on that. That's not great. But since my main damage dealer is currently seized, we're going to have to make do as we can. So it looks like I remembered correctly. It is the lower right tentacle that absorbs ice. So Terra's going to throw another one of my super balls. We'll see how that goes. Might have been enough to take out one tentacle. Yep, there we go. Super Ball is not a great option against multi-part bosses like this. The way that the algorithm works is it throws 3 balls, and it targets a random target for each one, and each ball does somewhere, but excuse me, it throws up to 4 balls, 1 to 4 balls, and each ball does between 64 and 2048 damage. So if you have a single target, you have a pretty good likelihood that you're going to hit that one for a lot of damage. If you have multiple targets, it gets divided between them, and you can't control how it's divided, so... There we go. That's Tentacles. And with Tentacles, we are able to get out of Phantom Train. Realm also learned her Ice 3, which is probably going to be her main damage for a bit here. So, after Phantom Train, we're going to head over and do Barren Falls. This is another Sabin check. The nice thing about Barren Falls is it gives you a free heal, a story heal, so you don't need to use a tent or anything before this. I'm moving that Ice 3 over to Terra so that she can learn it. The gap between the level 2 spells and the level 3 spells is pretty significant. The level 3 spells do cost more MP, which can matter in the early game, but stops mattering pretty quickly. In Final Fantasy, the amount of MP that you end up with at the end is pretty significant, so you don't usually have to worry about it. And here's Dullahan. I believe Dullahan is yet another boss trolling me by being immune to ice, or even absorbing ice. Let's see if I'm right about that. Well, I decided not to test it, and instead we're just going to use Realm to keep everybody topped up, and kill this thing with Flare Procs and Tyrannosaur. So despite being a skeleton wielding a mace, riding a chariot behind some sort of spirit demon, Dullahan isn't actually undead. Go figure. So, Meteo's still my best damage here when it hits. Terra's trying, she's helping out. And down goes Dullahan. So at this point in the game, I've got 5 characters out of my 8 required. One of the things that you learn to do as a racer of this game, the biggest thing that you learn to do as a racer of this game is to try and stay out of the menu. It is very easy, very, very easy to get sucked into spending a lot of time in the menu. So I try to make sure that I only menu when I am doing a number of things at once, and I try and make note in the back of my head everything that I'm doing. So we hear Gao's music, and in fact it is Gao. So we picked up the wild child himself, and we're right on the veldt. So Gao has 2 checks. I believe we're going to see one of them immediately. Having Gao in your party allows you to pick up a check on the veldt, and Gao has throw. So throw is one of the strongest skills in the game. Throw cannot be defended against. It does the same damage from the back row, and I'm deciding here that I'm going to take Mog out of my party to leave space for Gao. Now, I didn't put Gao in because my plan is to, after this, go directly to doing Gao's check on the veldt, and in order to do that, you need to not have a full party. The check will only activate when you have an empty space in your party. Because that's how you pick up Gao on the veldt in the vanilla game. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking out some item shops. What I'm doing is I'm looking for dried meat. In order to complete the Gao check, I need to have dried meat that I can throw on either the character or the merchant or soldier or imp or whoever shows up. While I'm here, I might as well check some shops. You never know when you're going to stumble onto something that's worth buying. But not in this shop. So we're going to leave Mobliz here, head over to Thamaza, I believe, and keep looking for dried meat. So Thamaza is another place that a lot of people work into their early game checks. That's because it has a couple of barrels that you can pick up items from, such as this one, Thunder Rod. And then over here, it also has a couple of shops that are pretty easy to check. I'm going to grab myself an Atlas Armlet in case anybody else ends up using physical attacks here. Atlas Armlet is the physical equivalent of an earring. It increases... there's my dried meat. So Atlas Armlet increases your physical attack by 25%. Unfortunately, they don't stack the way that earrings do. So if you put 2 earrings on, you get a 50% boost. If you put 2 Atlas Armlets on or an Atlas Armlet and a hero ring, you're just wasting one of your relic slots. So I'm also picking up shurikens. Shurikens and water edges. Both of these are throwables, so I'm going to need a bunch of those when I put Gao in my party. And I'm, in fact, going to sell a bunch of stuff, including my Tiger Fangs and my Sky Render that I picked up from defeating Doom, in order to buy more of them. Sky Render is a good chunk of money. It's a A-tier weapon, but generally in this game, you're not going to be swinging with A-tier weapons. You're only going to be swinging if you got some of the S-tier weapons. Things like your Ragnarok, your Illumina, your Atma weapon once you get to a sufficiently high level, and your Valiant Knife. So here we go. We got the dried meat. We're going to head back to the veldt and poke around, see if we can get ourselves an esper or another character. If I have a Moogle Charm on, I need to remove it. Terra's going to be doing some massive swings with that Mithril Knife. So the no rabbits don't give us experience, but nothing gives us experience on the veldt, so we might as well kill them. I'm looking for my dried meat, and there it is. So Locke throws a dried meat on the soldier, and what does this check give us? Another Magicite. So now I'm going to fly to my next check. Because I have Terra, a lot of people would have done this immediately upon getting Terra, but what I'm doing here is, I'm fixing my party, putting Gao back in, making sure that everybody has the things that they need. I'll probably unequip other members to get the stuff off of Sabin and Mog that they had. And then I'll get moving here. The check that I'm going into here is Cave to the Sealed Gate. Cave to the Sealed Gate is a great early game check. And the reason it's a great early game check is that it has a ton of loot. So Terra's going to be my Ragnarok holder. Gao's going to be throwing things. I'm removing that Thunder Rod because the main use of rods in this game is to crack them in order to do max damage attacks with tier 2 spells. So I'll be saving that Thunder Rod until such a time as I need to use it to do damage in some particular situation, against a boss that is weak against Thunder, for example. Gonna look at my espers. Odin gives me Ice 3 again. Life is useful, so I'll learn that. Odin also gives me a HP plus bonus, so it's useful to pay attention to those bonuses. Some are more useful than others. What it means is that every time a level up happens to a character that has that esper attached, they will get that bonus. So whatever HP Locke would have gotten as a normal level up bonus, now he will get 10% more than that. And that can add up over time. The most useful of the bonuses is by far Magic Power. You can get Magic Power plus 2. That is extremely valuable. You can also get Strength plus... you can get Strength at least plus 1. I think you can get Strength plus 2 as well. And those are very valuable because they directly increase your damage. And most of the time, that's what you need in this game, is always thinking about getting your damage up. So here's Cave to the Sealed Gate. I'm going to keep opening some chests here. At this point in the game, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. I'm still going to open chests because it's still mid-game, but I'm not going to open them if they're really far out of the way. I think that normally, in a normal run, I end up opening something like 100 chests throughout the course of the run. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. It's something I've noticed watching my tracker sheet as I go through, that usually by the time that I get to a point where I feel like I have everything that I need and I don't need to keep looking for things, that's around 100 chests. So you can see I've already opened up 72 if you look at my tracker there. So I'm most of the way. I'm getting closer to not needing to open things anymore, but because Cave to the Sealed Gate is such a treasure-rich location, you never know what you're going to find. X Potion, that's going to come in very useful toward the end of the game. You don't want to forget this little hidden room here. This is where the vanilla Atma weapon is in the standard game. Here was just a bunch of garbage, but again, every chest that you don't open has an Illumina in it, so you always got that itch. You always got that itch to open just one more. So, this check, along with the Gao check and the first lock check, is free, which means we don't have to kill a boss at the end of it. Instead, we just walk up and see what the reward is, and the reward is a Yeti. Hello, Yumaro. I'm not going to take the Yeti. Yeti can be useful in niche situations, but you also can't direct where he does his damage. So generally speaking, he's not going to be the best choice. He does come with a snow muffler, though, one of the best armors in the game. So at this point, I have Terra, Mog, and I have Terra and Mog together, which means that I can do all 3 of the available checks in World of Balanced Narsh. I also have Umara, which means that I can do all of the remaining checks in World of Ruin Narsh. But before we do that, I'm gonna come and do this realm check on Esper Mountain. This is another one where we get to peek and see what we're gonna get at the end. We don't get Strago before we defeat the boss, but we know it's gonna be Strago. So if we didn't want Strago, we could just turn around and walk out. We do want Strago. He's gonna be our 8th character. So in order to get him, we're gonna fight this Whelk. Out comes Ice 3. And you're going to start throwing some things at him. I've made a little bit of a mistake here. I don't think it's going to matter much, but Terra swinging that Ragnarok should be in the front row. Ragnarok does not do the same damage in the back row, so having her in the back row means while she takes half as much damage from physical attacks, she also deals half as much damage from physical attacks. And so if she's going to be swinging, it would make sense to put her in the front row. And put Gao in the back row. So I'm sure I'll do that at some point. So we grabbed Strago. We didn't even bother to see what Strago had because we're pretty happy with the party right now. That's, you know, arguably a mistake. He could have something really valuable like, I don't know, Shock, maybe. Shock is General Leo's default skill in the vanilla game. So I'm coming to Zen here, checking this creep hanging out back in the woods. He tells me that he's got an esper to sell for $60,000. That's near the top of the range. That can cost anywhere between 1 and 65,535 GP. Since it's so close to the top of the range, I'll probably swing back and pick this up in World of Ruin to Zen, where it has a different price. And that different price is probably going to be less. But while I'm here, I'll check the shops, because you never know what you're going to find. There's Mega Elixirs for sale. I don't know if I'm going to come back for those, but yeah, you can just buy Mega Elixirs in Worlds Collide if you find the right shop. So it looks like I'm going to follow through on that Sen Thief guy. This also gives me an opportunity to take care of another Sabin check, which is the Light of Judgment burning down the village house here. I'm saving because once you get into this encounter with the Light of Judgment, you can't warp out, you can't walk out. So potentially if it was another character, it's not, I see that it's an imp. If it was another character, then I might decide that I didn't want to take this now. The guy in the woods gave us a discount compared to the World of Balance, so we get to keep around 15,000 of our money. And here we go. Talk to the imp and go into the house. Collapsing House also has some good loot and is also a free check, in the sense that there's not a boss here. It does have 2 monsters in a box, and I think I'm going to take those. Because at this point in the game, it's still possible that I would want to find Katana Soul. Katana Soul is a boss who drops a offering, which is a very useful relic. Lets you hit 4 times and pairs very well with like Atma Weapon or with Valiant Knife. But instead I find Master Pug, and Master Pug just gives you a Greatus, which is not a great dagger, so we're just going to warp out of there. Finding myself some bling there. And monster in a box number 2 is Spectre. Spectre I will, again, take the time to kill, but mostly just because I can drop a Revivify on him. So I know it's a one-shot kill. I think Spectre just gives us a Hyper Wrist. Yeah. Potentially useful. Hyper Wrist, not a great relic, but also not one that is totally useless. It boosts your Vigor by some amount, which translates into something like a 20% damage boost in most scenarios. So the house goes down. We're going to go have a heart-to-heart with the imp here. And see what saving this imp gets us. And it is another Magicite. So, we are coming up in the world. We have found all 8 of our characters. So this puts us in an interesting position. Right now, we don't really want to be doing checks if we know they're going to give us more characters. And so I think you're going to see me trying to do checks where where either they're spaced very close together, or we can get a peek of what it's going to be. I'm buying some bolt edges here to be able to throw some more with Gao. Bolt edges let you target bolt elemental weaknesses, but you can always throw shurikens at anything, really. So we're going to the World of Balance now. I think we're going to follow through on what I was talking about with doing the Narsh checks all together. So in World of Balance Narsh, there are 3 checks. Terra has one. That's the Welk Spot check. First, we're going to check out our espers. Alexandra gives us Strength +1. So I think I see that, and I'm going to put it on Terra instead. Or maybe not? Oh, I'm going to put it on my thrower. Strength is good. It boosts his physical throwing damage. I've probably decided Terra might be more of a caster for most of the seed, even though she's swinging a Ragnarok now. So I'm going to pick up my free heal in the Narsh Training Center. Anyway, I was saying that Terra gives you the Welk check. Welk check is where Terra fights Welk in the vanilla game, in the caves. But I'm also going to route in the Lone Wolf check, which is a Mog's only check, is Lone Wolf. So to do that, you have to activate Lone Wolf over in this treasure hut here. There he goes. He's taken a treasure! We have to go see what it was. But first, we're going to take all the rest of these boxes that he didn't bother to open. So let's chase Lone Wolf up the mountain, and while we do that, we will do Terra's check. We also have the option of doing the Kefka at Narsh check. Kefka at Narsh is a open check. You do not need a character to do it. Any character, any party that you have, you can always do Kefka at Narsh. Before I get there, I'm going to sell some stuff and buy some smoke bombs. That's so that I don't have to waste my warp stones to get out of battles if I want to get out of battles. While I'm selling, I might as well sell a whole bunch of junk I'm not going to use. It's always useful to have money when you walk into a store, and, again, menu boss is the hardest boss. Selling menu is definitely one of the menus that can get you. So one of the nice things here is we see Edgar up in the cave there. That tells us that Edgar is the reward for doing the Umaro check in the World of Ruin. So because we have... that's really useful information. Speaking of Umaro, here's French vanilla Umaro here. Umaro, another boss who is immune to ice. For my magic damage mostly being ice, I'm getting all of those guys in this seed. Just gonna throw some shurikens at him. This is another case where having health is handy. Always being able to heal is very useful. It means the difference between having to spend your Phoenix Downs, having to spend your items, or just, being able to keep going. And if you lose a person, if they go down, that's wasted time. Or wasted experience if they're not alive for the end of the fight. So it's very nice to have some healing here. And Umaro goes down to a Medio. That Medio is still pulling a lot of weight here, even though I have some other good damage options coming up. So, if you think back to the very beginning of the seed, I did the Narsh weapon shop check, Locks check, and we had an option there to pick two things. The second thing that we didn't pick ends up here in the World of Balance. That is intentional, so that if you want to, you have that information, you can come here and pick it up if it's valuable. An elemental shield is always something I'm going to grab. That's for two reasons. First off, elemental protection is one of the best things you can get for your characters in this game. The thunder shield will absorb thunder and nullify wind. The fire shield will absorb fire and nullify ice. The ice shield will absorb ice and nullify fire. So negating or absorbing off of 2 of the 8 elements in the game is really valuable. Especially when you start facing later bosses that start throwing, like Merton, for example. Merton is a powerful spell that is also undodgeable and fire-wind elemental. So any elemental shield you have, you'll never get this Aegis shield. No! Sorry, Aegis shield. Instead, I will take this imp. And the imp has an esper, so this is really paying off here. Anyway, any elemental shield you put on will protect you against Merton, and that in and of itself is worthwhile. So I'm actually going to do Kefka at Narsh here. I'm going to check my equipment first. Guess I decided that's all okay. Look at my new espers. Bio is sometimes useful. There's a couple bosses that are weak to it. Funbaba. There's a couple bosses you can poison. I think a couple of the dragons. But mostly I think I'm getting the Life 3 off of that. Life 3 is a very useful spell at times. It's one way to mitigate the danger of the final battle. It's a little bit slow, but it works. So I'm going to heal up here, drop a save, and get into Kefka at Narsh. So Kefka at Narsh makes you form 2 parties. I'm going to use my main party here. It doesn't really matter who I put in the other one, because I'm not going to use them. There's our man Kefka again, laughing his head off. So I'm going to show off a little bit of a speed strat here. It's not a hard one. Anyone can do it. You can learn to do it yourself. So I'm going to walk down here, and I'm going to be able to dodge all of the guards. So if you stand in this little gap here in the middle. Oh, I'm finally fixing my rows there. Okay. So stand in this little gap in the middle here. Wait for the guards to pass. Once they pass, you can walk down here. And if you time it just right, you can walk right by the guard on the left and walk right up to the boss. So, here's our first Ultros of the seed. Ultros, let's see, I think this is Opera House Ultros, so that's Ultros 2. Ultros, finally not immune to ice, so enjoy a column of ice. Also not immune to Meteo, nothing's immune to Meteo. But a lot of things can dodge it. Fortunately, coming in with the Ragnarok swing is enough to end that fight. And Kefka warps away and drops off another Magicite. So now that we have full cleared World of Balance Narsh, we're going to go to, I think World of Ruin Narsh is next. We're going to fight a dragon there and do the Tritok battle, which is another battle that you can do regardless of who's in your party. That one is always available to you. So Narsh World of Balance is one of the checks that you cannot warp out of, so you have to do the walk all the way back. But I'm perfectly happy to do that since this particular visit netted us 3 of our 10 espers. And while I'm here, might as well check the shops, see what's there. Nothing useful. Probably going to grab a top off our health here at the bucket. It's always useful in this game to know where and when you get free heals. It's because you gain levels very quickly. I should say that the compared to the vanilla game, the experience multiplier is it's approximately a factor of 12 higher than the vanilla game. So you gain levels pretty fast in Worlds Collide relative to the standard game. And what that means is that if you do a couple of bosses in a row and you don't bother to save in between, you can get into trouble because your max HP is going up and the enemy levels are going up. But if you don't heal and if you don't recover your MP, you can find yourself in a pretty sticky situation. So we do the same walk, different music. This time we're going to find a dragon up here. And we are going to take this dragon fight. This dragon is optional. You don't need to fight any of the dragons. They're not part of the requirements for the objectives for unlocking KT. But I'm going to do it anyway after taking a safety save because dragons are a really good experience, for one thing. And for another thing, they always drop a top-tier item. It's not always a top-tier item that you want. Sometimes it's a Genji helmet, and you don't need another Genji helmet. But sometimes it's an Illumina. So, we have Goldie here. Goldilocks, the Bolt Dragon, is weak to water, I believe. So we're going to throw some water edges. And everything is weak to Ragnarok. Well, almost everything. Oh no, Realm goes down. So I'm going to take a turn to get her up here. One of the reasons for taking a dragon fight in the first place is to get the experience, and so I want to make sure that Realm gets in on this sweet, sweet experience. You note that I often will open up a menu and kind of hang out in the menu while attack animation is going on. That's called weight tricking. And the reason for doing that is that it stops the ATB meters from filling up. So if I have my ATB meters filled, there's no reason to let the enemy's ATB meters keep filling up. Oh, and we got an experience egg. Experience egg is an extremely useful item in this game. It doubles the experience for one character, and I'm immediately going to slap that onto Gao so that Gao can gain levels faster. As much as we talk about finding good equipment and whatnot, finding good spells, honestly, by far the best thing to increase your damage is to increase your levels. Many attacks scale with level squared, some scale with level cubed, like Atma weapon swings. So it's it's the easiest way to get your damage up. And we find Ultros 1. Ultros 1, gonna get hit by a rag swing with a flare proc, and that's gonna be enough for him. So Ultros goes down, and Sir Valigarmander gives us a Esper. This is our 8th Esper, and it is Golem. So Golem is a particularly good Esper, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I'll just point out that at this point, we could go into that cave and do the Umara check. We're not doing it because we know that the Umara check is just Edgar, and we don't need another character. So instead, we're going to go do another Realm check here in Jador. So why is Golem a great Esper? In addition to teaching you magic and giving you bonuses, you can summon the Espers in battle. And I haven't been doing it so much here, but in this flag set, I believe, we have multi-summon on. So in the vanilla game, you can summon an Esper in battle 1 time per battle. In Worlds Collide, in this particular flag set, we've made it so that you can summon the Esper as many times as you want. And Golem puts up a barrier to physical attacks. So it looks at the HP of the person who's casting it, and the Golem robot absorbs all physical attacks until it reaches that number of HP hit, and it protects you from it. So I'm just checking the auction house here. Actually, I'm going to do auction house here. So auction house can also have Espers. And in fact, here's an Esper. This is very good luck. The Magicite Ragnarok. In the auction house, there's a chance to get 2 items in the World of Ruin, 2 items, and then there's 2 slots that can be filled with Espers. And then there's also the possibility of getting an Imp Robot. And if you buy an item in the World of Ruin, it gets pulled out of the pool, so you can't get it again. But you can always get the Imp Robot. And if you get the Imp Robot, you can't buy it, and it is an unskippable cutscene that just eats up time. So I got very lucky here. I'm going to check again, see if there's any more Espers. The guy at the door tells us there are not, in fact, glowing stones available. So we got the 1 Esper here on our first try, and that's a very good luck. So anyway, Golem is among the best protection against one of the attacks in the final boss. It's a death attack on the final boss that does instant kill on up to 2 of your characters. But it's a physical attack, and so if you have Golem up, it'll just block it, and you don't have to worry about it. So I looked through those Espers, didn't look like there was much of use. I put Golem on somebody. I didn't see in this watch through whether Golem was going to teach me anything or whether I'm just prepping for the final battle. Might as well check this weapon shop, see if there's anything useful. I am going to buy a couple of these blizzards and some more bolt edges. The blizzards are for throwing. If you find an enemy that is weak against ice, and there are a few, even in the final boss, throwing a blizzard at them is a really great way to do damage. So let's check out this picture of a lovely lady. And we get a Magrotor fight, which I'm going to take. Magrotor, one of the fights from the minecart ride, and that's why the music didn't change. So we get to keep listening to this beautiful Baroque harpsichord as we continue down into Owzer's basement. So this is a realm check. That's because this is where you find realm in the world of Ruin in the vanilla game. I'm going to pick up this chest in the back here. There's no reason not to. It is 100% free because you have to wait for the door to move. So we get our second battle in a row here. I really like the Owzer's Mansion. You get a couple of additional fights, so you can, top your levels off if you need to. You can warp out of here if you don't like what you see. You can, before you do the boss battle, you can peek and see if it's a character or not. And you don't have to walk out of it. It just puts you at the door if you beat the boss. So I think it's time to do some sleeping bags here. Terra was getting a bit low on health. And let's see what Owzer's got for us. So it's not a character, so I'm going to take this fight. And maybe it will be my 10th Esper. If so, then we'll be moving on into the endgame at about 1 hour. So speaking of moving into the endgame, Locke is still doing Tyrannosaur Rage. I kind of would have preferred to have something else going on for him at this point. You don't generally want to be using rages in the final battle because you can't, because sometimes, and I'll talk about this when we get to it, but sometimes you need to be able to direct where your damage is going. Guardian here, this robot, is one of the Kefka Tower bosses. That is in the vanilla game, in the Gauntlet, what we call it, the last 4 bosses before Final Kefka. Anyway, at this point in the game, Tyrannosaur is still good, Meteor is still good, but I would like to have something else for Locke to be doing, because I don't necessarily want to be using Rage in the final battle. Still, it's pretty good damage. Guardian is a pretty beefy guy, has a lot of HP, but we bring him down. Being able to throw those bolt edges was really nice, since he's weak to bolt. He also gives a whole bunch of XP. And Owzer's Painting Soldier. What have you got for us? Raiden Magicite. So that's great. That is our last Magicite. We are at 810. The only thing we have left to do is go save or kill Sid. So again, at this point in the race at SGDQ, we would cut off the bidding on the incentive. Oh, it looks like I'm going to take a dragon fight before I do that. So I'm just topping off my levels here. This is a nice, easy way to make sure you learn... Oh, I found a Magic Power +1 Esper. I'm definitely going to put that on Realm, so she can get the benefit of that Magic Power +1. So yeah, so taking these dragons just before you go into KT is a great way to get your main team all an extra level or 2 before they have to split up and take on bosses on their own. So you walk up here, talk to the stage master, drop through a hole in the floor, and it's dragon time. So the dragons are randomized. You know that because we fought Gold Dragon up in Narsh. Here we've got the Ice Dragon, the one from Narsh. Ice Dragon is a bit of a pushover. The one thing Ice Dragon can do, A, is absorb ice, which is still my main magic damage here. I swear I'm getting super trolled on that here. Anyway, so he absorbs ice, so I'm casting Meteor instead. It's a very long animation, it's not a ton of damage, so I think I'm just going to skip using Realm for the rest of this fight. But the other thing that Ice Dragon can do is North Cross. North Cross will freeze some of your party members, but fortunately it missed all of us. And one more Shuriken takes him down. Ice Dragon can also be, I think, slept and muddled and poisoned and a whole bunch of different things, but it's not usually necessary. And I mentioned that all of the dragons drop a top tier item. This one gave us Minerva. Minerva being one of the best armors in the game. It's great for your stats, and it nullifies the 4 main elements, fire, ice, thunder, and wind, which is great because, as I said before, elemental protection is one of the best things you can do for your characters. So having done that, I think now I head to the Solitary Island to save or kill Sid, and we'll see which one I decide to do. But in SGDQ, the incentive would have been cut off when the first runner met the requirements, and so we would know, instructed by our overlords, which we were going to do. I just caught a fast fish there, so it looks like I'm going to try and save Sid. If you feed Sid the fast fish, his HP goes up. If you feed Sid the slow fish, his HP goes down. It is substantially easier to catch the fast fish when there are fast fish, because they just walk faster, and in order for you to catch them, they have to come right up to the edge. So, in the interest of speed, I am catching fast fish and feeding them to Sid, and I think this will be over with pretty quickly here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe one more. So, among the other changes to the game, Atmatek, there we go. And that's Sid saved with 4 fish. Unlock Final Kefka complete, and it's time for us to go to Kefka Tower. I usually put in one last shopping trip here in World of Ruin Aldbrook. It's very close to Kefka's Tower. I don't usually come here before this, and I often have a ton of money at this point, so it's useful to see if I can buy something with it. So I'm going to go look at some weapons. I decided I didn't need any of the items there. If they had, like, elixirs or X potions or X ethers, I probably would have bought some of them. I'm going to buy some fire skeins for Gao, and I think that's it. My damage is ready to go. There's no reason to draw things out here. So we're going to get on the airship, fly over to KT, and drop on in. So Atmatek did double the point values of the fish in the fishing minigame. That makes it easier both to save Sid and to kill him. So here I'm dividing up my party into 3 different parties. Terra I'm putting by herself because she's very strong. Realm I'm putting by herself. The party on the right is the party that ends up taking the most battles. The rightmost party has to, the way that routing is usually done, the rightmost party has to defeat 3 bosses. That's at the Inferno spot, at the Guardian spot, and at the Poltergeist spot. So normally we put the best damage dealer there. I have been playing around with putting the character that I want to grow the most there. Like if I have a character who is under-leveled compared to the others, or who would benefit especially from having extra levels, I try to put them in party number 3. But you have to be careful because we don't know what bosses are coming. And if you run into some of the terrible bosses, Doomgaze, Magi Master, the other 2 statues, Poltergeist and Goddess, there's a couple other ones that can give you a bad day. If you don't have fire or non-elemental damage, Tritok can stop you. Anyway, if you're not ready for it, this is a point where the run gets very dangerous because you don't know what you're going to run into, and you might have to, if it gets bad enough, you might need to warp out of KT and redo all of this walking just to salvage the run. So we try to avoid that, of course. There is a lot of walking at the beginning of KT. We walked right past Atma in his cell there, contemplating the meaning of the universe. We can just let him keep contemplating the meaning of the universe. If you do kill Atma, it counts as a check. You can... I think usually you get a top tier item out of it, but I think theoretically you can get an esper out of that too. Almost nobody ever does it. which is why I don't know. So in terms of just to give you a sense of scale, there are 14 playable characters in the game, and there are, I believe, 27 espers that you can get. And so in this run, this is any percent. We are nowhere near 100%ing this. We are just getting enough to meet our requirements to get to and defeat Kefka. Doing a little bit of swapping around of espers here, looking for something that's good for my man Locke. Gonna give him life 3. Keep Gao on the experience egg and the strength +1 esper, and take our first boss fight in KT. So Inferno jumps on us, and we get Inferno's little brother, number 128. So I'm going to try and cast Ice 3 on this guy. This is a mistake. Number 128 absorbs ice. All I can say in my defense here is that I tried it first for a reason, because I didn't remember, and that there's just a lot of things you need to remember for this. So I put Tyrannosaur back on lock. We'll see how that goes. Strago's not going to be doing much. He's just defending and trying to survive. You can do it, Strago. So Meteor takes out the arms here, and I think one more Shuriken's going to do it. So the way that Worlds Collide usually plays out is that the early game, you can struggle to get started, finding damage, building up a couple of levels, finding some good grind fights, getting through the first couple encounters. And then you tend to get ahead of the curve. Things tend to get a little bit easier in the mid-game. It becomes more about having good routing. It becomes more about knowledge, really more minor optimizations, not wasting too much time in the menu, doing checks that are close to each other. But then when you get into the end game and you have to split your characters up here, all of a sudden there's a difficulty spike. And I find that the end game of Worlds Collide, this is part of what makes it so exciting to race, is that if you get in here and and KT throws you a surprise in terms of a nasty boss you weren't expecting, or something that you don't have a way of damaging with this particular party, it can really give you a bad day, and you have to go back to basics. You have to draw on your knowledge of all of the details of how everything in this game works, just to squeeze through. And that's where all of that looting comes into play. Like maybe you picked up an ice rod, and maybe throwing an ice rod on Flame Eater is how you're going to get through it if you don't have any other way of dealing ice damage. So yeah, this is where it really gets interesting and fun. So because everything is character gated in World Collides, what we often see in races is that, especially with a 3-character start like this, is that different racers will take very different routes early in the game. They'll follow one character instead of another one, and it'll bring them to different damage solutions. It'll bring them to different parties. But then, very often, they meet up in KT. And it becomes down to the wire, down to, 1 minute ahead going into the final boss, one way or the other. How well you execute the final boss, you can catch up, you can surpass someone who got there before you. Here's one of those cases where throwing a blizzard is going to do a bunch of damage. There's my first quad 9s with that blizzard throw, so that's why I bought him. Anyway, at this point in the game, it really is a great exhibit of skill, it's a great exhibit of knowledge, it's a great exhibit of preparation, and we found with the recent tournaments, they just keep getting better and better as more and more people join the racing community, and we get more and more talent. It's really been an exciting time to be playing this game. So I'm dropping a safety save here. Always a good idea to drop a safety save after Guardian. All we have left is Meme Chest. There's a hidden chest there that is almost never useful to you, but again, everyone you don't open has an Illumina. It has been useful to me on a couple of occasions. And the 3 statue fights. So, our center party is fighting Atma Weapon. Those of you who have played Vanilla Game, Atma Weapon might be a bit scary. Atma Weapon certainly has great music. But Atma Weapon is not actually terribly scary in Worlds Collide. This boss tends to do a lot of single target attacks, and so you can usually recover from it, even when he's leveled way up. So let's see, we've done, I think the level scaling is at least 32 here. 36. So we have a flag set where the bosses top off at level 40. They can't go above level 40 in this particular flag set. But I think they're around level 36 here. So I've still outpaced them in terms of levels. You can see that experience egg really coming into play with Gao getting high 4-digit throws here. Apologies for the little bit of poison walking there. We'll make that go away with a sleeping bag. So this party's done. I'm setting them up here to go into KT. Gao doesn't need that experience egg anymore. He's already level 49, which is quite high. Typically, going into the final boss at around level 40 is more than enough. So this seed has gone really well for me in terms of growth. Now Terra's going to take on her one-on-one boss, and it is Goddess. It is one of the statues. Goddess can be a scary boss, so we'll see how Terra does. Fortunately, that Ragnarok is still doing a lot of damage. So I tried stealing with Sabin here. You can steal a Minerva off of Goddess, Minerva being one of the best armors in the game. Fortunately, I have Sabin to punch Terra and wake her up here. This is why we bring the extra people, because they're useful for throwing items, they're useful for waking you up if you're asleep, they're useful for throwing super balls sometime. So I tried out Stunner here for Terra. This was a little bit of a mistake. I thought that Sabin had gotten hit by Love Token, which would make Sabin eat any of Terra's fights. But it wasn't Love Token, it was Charm. And he's dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. So with this Ragnarok hit and Flare proc, I think we're going to see Goddess go down. Yeah, there she goes. Yeah, so Goddess can be a scary fight. In general, I've found that Doom is usually the least dangerous of the three statues. Goddess is, in my opinion, the second least dangerous, and the most dangerous by far is Poltergeist, who we haven't seen so far, and we may not see. I'm checking Terra's setup. I'm going to keep her as she is, because those Gauntlet, Atlas Armlet swings with the Ragnarok doing high 4-digit damage, that's really going to see me through in the final boss. And the last boss prior to final boss, the penultimate boss, is the Goddess statue location, and Realm is facing Air Force. Air Force can actually be a bit of a scary boss. I don't think it will be here, but these bosses that have multiple parts can be pretty dangerous. I'm going to use Mog to throw my last Super Ball. Maybe it'll help. It hit just the arms, so not that useful. And here we see that I have neglected to heal up Realm. I neglected to increase her MP, so I go through my menu looking for a solution. I find that Thunder Rod, and fortunately Air Force is weak to Bolt. Breaking a Rod gives you a max strength casting of that spell, and so with quad 9s, Air Force goes down. Thank you, Thunder Rod. That's why we loot. And that's it. That should bring us into the final battle. I might check Realm's... I'm definitely going to heal Realm up, get her MP back up, because she's mostly a caster. And I might check her setup, see if I want to change anything on her. Nope, she's going to be happy with Raiden. Raiden is an instant death esper, so I will be casting that a couple of times in the final battle. There are two parts of the... there's a part of Tier 1 and a part of Tier 2 that are vulnerable to instant death, so Raiden will be useful there. And here we go. We are into Final Kefka at 117. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this fight, Final Kefka is a 4-tiered boss battle. You fight through Dante's Divine Comedy from Inferno up through Purgatory to Paradise. And then at the top of it all, you fight the Mad Clown himself. It gives you a choice of which characters you want to send. I'm going to take my main party. I always worry about making sure I get the right people here. And here we go. So, in Tier 1, the first thing you want to do is try and cast Instant Death on the long arm. That's the arm on the left-hand side. Terra's going to fight the head, and we're going to throw a Fire Skein, because the head is weak against fire. After the long arm, you want to make sure that you kill the head before you kill the short arm being the fist there. Short arm punches pretty hard, but it doesn't have a death counter. If you leave the head till last, the head will cast Quake on you. Quake will give you a bad day. It's a very powerful spell. So you can avoid that with Float if you want. I'm putting up a Golem here because in order to absorb those hits from the short arm. Actually, it looks like I'm focusing on taking down the head first. Yeah, so there's a Golem protection, saving a couple of us. And there goes the head. We get the audio cue. All right, so here's the Raiden cast. This is the Raiden Esper. True Edge. This has a chance of doing instant death on the long arm, but it missed. Fortunately, we have multicast on, so I can give it another try. Whether I'm going to or not. Looks like I got ahead of myself here. It's pretty dangerous here to key in commands before you know where things are going. Because if I were to kill that short arm before the long arm, it's not as bad as killing the head last. But if you kill the long arm last, it does shockwave, up to 3 shockwaves. So there goes long arm with the instant death. And we're pretty close to killing short arm here. I think it has about 30,000 HP. And there it goes. With that Golem protection, you see that saved Gao from having a very bad day. So, that's Tier 1. Heading up to Tier 2. Tier 2 has 4 parts to it. It has the guy in back, called Magic, the girl with machine parts in the middle, called Tools, the blue guy in front, called Hit, and the tiger head, called Tiger. So there's a couple things we can do here. We can cast Raiden, because Tools, the mechanical bit in the middle, is vulnerable to instant death. We can throw a Blizzard at Tiger Head, because Tiger Head is weak to ice. So here's Raiden. Hopefully we can get this instant death off. Nope, it missed. But Locke is going to cast Siren Esper. Siren casts Mute, and ironically, Magic in the back only has magic attacks and is vulnerable to Mute, so he's out of the fight. We're going to try bringing down Tiger Head with our physical attackers here. Tiger Head, once Tools and Magic go down, Tiger Head is definitely the most dangerous. Tiger can zombie your party, and a zombied party member can attack your party. Okay, there goes the instant death on Tools. Locke is casting Ice 3 on Tiger because Tiger's weak to Ice 3, and Tiger goes down. So now it's just a muted Magic, who is not really doing anything, and Hit. So I took the opportunity to take a couple of heals here. I'm attacking Magic while I do this because if I bring... When Hit gets killed, Hit does a thing called 10 hits. I'm going to use Realm to unfreeze Gao. If you cast Fire on a frozen party member, it thaws them out, and Gao is doing a ton of damage for me. So anyway, I wanted to heal up a little bit before 10 hits happened. 10 hits is what it sounds like. he hits you 10 times. Realm's gonna drop an ether on herself because she is out of MP. So I mentioned I didn't typically want to use the Tyrannosaur Rage in the final battle. Okay, we're into 10 hits. So here we go. We've blocked a few of them. We're getting hit by a few of them. It looks like we're going to be okay. Maybe if Terra were to take all of them, she might go down, but she doesn't. They get spread out a bit, so we're okay. I cast Golem. I cast it a little bit late. That was intended to absorb some of 10 hits. But it's still up, so that's okay. Now we just have to take down Magic, which should be easy to do, because he can't do anything. And Gao's throwing for almost quad 9s. So Magic will be able to cast some spells when he dies. He'll often hit you with Dispel like this. That removes any of your positive status buffs. Fortunately, he just did Dispel. He also has a chance of doing Quarter, which whoever it hits, it brings you down to 1/4 of your current HP. And that won't kill you, but it can put you in a bad position for Tier 3. So here's Tier 3. Tier 2 was pretty smooth. Tier 3 consists of these two characters. The one in the back is Girl, or Lady, and she has 9999 HP. She absorbs every element, and she mostly just heals. So we need to bring her down first. If you don't bring her down first, then she will cast Life 2 on Sleep, who is the second guy when Sleep goes down. Fortunately, Gao can take her down in one hit, which means we can move on to Sleep. So Sleep has 40,000 HP. It is a little dangerous if you get Sleep up to below 10,000 HP, then Sleep will start casting Meteo on you, and we've all seen what Meteo does to the enemy, so it's good to try and avoid having Meteo hit your party. Other than that, Sleep is the one who does Calmness. Calmness is the instant death physical attack that Golem should protect. So I'm refreshing Golem here, putting it back up again in case it wasn't still up. Counting HP, I think Sleep has about 25,000 still to go. These wind winds are rude, but since they take you down to, I think, 1/8 of your HP, Realm's going to keep us alive here. While I edge up the damage a bit. Terra's using Sword Tech 5. Sword Tech 5 is a great sword tech. It is a full heal to both your HP and MP, as well as a drain of the enemy. So we're getting pretty close to Sleep hitting the Meteo spam portion of the game. I'm gonna wait for Gao to get doomed here. He had Condemned on, and his counter went down to 0. I did that on purpose so that I can bring him back again, because he really is my main damage, and I really want to have him in the final battle. So I'm going to bring him up with life. I'm going to throw an elixir onto him to make sure that he's survivable. And I think we should be pretty close to making this happen now. So one shuriken hit. So instead of countering with Meteo, he countered with Train. Train is a bit rude. It puts a bunch of status effects on you. Blind, mute. So I'm going to put a remedy on Terra. Oh, and I also get a Meteo. I guess that's my just desserts for using it so much earlier. Fortunately, it misses Realm. And who had the lowest HP. And I should be able to take this out with one more shuriken. So there we go. Golem blocks Calmness, and we progress on to Final Kefka himself. So Final Kefka can be dangerous. There's a couple different phases to him. At the very beginning, you get to swing at him for free for a bit, and if you do less than, I think it's 30,000 damage, then his opening attack is going to be Fallen One. Fallen One brings all of your party members down to 1 HP, so that's pretty dangerous. A lot of the time you want a Mega Elixir in order to deal with that. I never found a Mega Elixir, I don't think, in this run, so I'll probably just use health. So Realm is going to throw a Remedy on herself in order to be able to cast Magic later, assuming I can find my remedies. There they are. I'll move him up to the top because he can also do... Final Kefka can also do Train, and I'll need them in that case. And we're definitely not going to skip Fallen One. So here's Fallen One. After Fallen One, he can hit you with some counterattacks. Havoc Wing is a very strong physical counterattack. Hyperdrive is a very strong magical counterattack. I threw that Elixir on Realm in order to get her MP back up. Terra is going to use Empowerer again, so she can get her full heal. Locke is not super useful in this battle, because he's muted and I don't really want to take the time to unmute him. But he can throw items for me. He can bring Gao back, Gao being my main damage. You'll note that I took the Thunder Shield off of Locke. I did that because here at the end of the game... Oh, bye Gao. Here at the end of the game, we want to be able to throw our Thunder Shields, or rather crack our Thunder Shields. That gives us a full strength Bolt 3 cast. Any Elemental Shield would do that, give you a... Oh, and I think this is it? No, it's not. Kefka has 60,000 HP. He's giving me a ton of nasty counters here. If you get him below 10,000 HP, he can hit you with an Ultima counter, and that's that can often be a really bad day. But instead, he starts charging up his final attack, Goner. I hit him with the Thunder Shield and a Ragnarok Swing and a Shuriken, and I believe that is it. There's the Krakow. So, with 130.05, that's my run of Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. I hope you enjoyed it. I really love this game. I've been playing it for most of a year now, and I love racing it. The races are always exciting. There's so much knowledge to learn, so much it rewards knowledge and skill, and there's still a good amount of luck in it. And the thing I love most about it is that it's super configurable. All of this is the standard race flag sets, but you can go in on the ff6wc.com website and you can mess around with the flags. You can make a huge range of different experiences, different ways to play this game, and all of them are super fun. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you all at SGDQ.